So we are starting chapter 5 today, and that is about liberty. And liberty is a really important topic because if liberty is not there, all other rights or duties are meaningless. So the sequence we will follow here: meaning, the kinds of liberty, nature of rights, and kinds of rights. Liberty, what we understand from this is that liberty may mean absence of all restraints, that there is no restriction, no restraint, no limitation. So if there is any limitation, there is any restriction or restraint, so that's mean it is not a liberty. So when all these restriction, restraints, limitations are absent, then it is known as liberty. An absolute and uncontrolled type of liberty is not possible in an organized society. It could be visualized only in state of nature. Uncontrolled type of liberty, where there is no restriction and there is no restraint, it is not possible in an organized society or in a state. So this liberty only can be visualized, uncontrolled type of liberty, in a state of nature only. So different connotations by different scholars, how they define this liberty, and the word has been used conveying different connotations. When the term liberty is used in context of the role of associations and individuals, it signifies those privileges they are entitled to avail. Sometimes it is used in terms of limitations. It signifies those privileges, like those rights which a person is entitled. And sometimes this liberty, it depicts or it denotes some certain restrictions or limitations as well. In socialist thought, economic aspect of liberty has been much emphasized, while in Western liberalism this term is identified with constitutional government and political democracy. So the socialists, they actually emphasizing on the economic aspect of liberty, like people must do what kind of business, what kind of trade, what kind of profession or job they wanted to do, they must be allowed to do that. So it will bring some sort of harmony in the society. This is the socialist thought. And in Western liberalism, this term is a bit different, and they identify it with the constitutional government and political democracy. Like there must be a constitution which must be accepted and followed by that state, and the political democracy, that people are running that state through their will or through their representative. Balanced view, liberty is in fact a relative term, as liberty of one is closely linked with the liberty of others. Like if there is my liberty and there is your liberty, so it has some limitations. It is not unlimited or unrestricted. you can say that my liberty, it ends up where your liberty starts. So वो कहते हैं ना, मैंने कि अगर आप छड़ी घुमा सकते हैं, आप आपकी आज़ादी है, आप छड़ी घुमा सकते हैं, मगर वो छड़ी जब वो मेरी नाक को टच करेगी तो डेफिनेटली फिर आपकी आज़ादी ख़त्म हो जाती है। ठीक है, तो आपको अपनी आज़ादी को एंजॉय करें, लेकिन एक ख़ास हद तक, उसकी कुछ लिमिटेशंस हैं। However, in political discussions, liberty always implies a system of rights and duties. So, liberty वो कुछ लोगों के हुकूक और उनकी जिम्मेदारियों का तयन करती है। In the Declaration of Human Rights promulgated in 1789, liberty was defined as freedom to any action which does not injure others. So, liberty is actually a freedom which does not harm others or injure others. So if it injures or harm others, so that is not a freedom. That is actually a violation of the liberty or freedom. So this word liberty is derived from a Latin word liber. According to Seeley, liberty implies the protection against state interference. Like state must not intervene in the individual matters, in the matters of the people. And Laski defines it as the absence of restraints on those social conditions that are indispensable for the betterment and welfare of people in modern age. So there must not be restraints or restrictions on those social conditions which are necessary for the betterment and welfare of the people. And Lasky, it points out its positive aspect as well. And he says that the preservation of conditions and environments under which people get the opportunities to develop their capabilities. That the environment or the conditions, it must be made according to the capabilities of the people, where they can enjoy their lives and where people they can get better opportunities and they can develop their capabilities as well. And the kinds of liberty. The term liberty, it has been used in different senses. It is imperative to explain its different kinds so as to appraise its true content. So we'll see into different kinds of liberty, through which we will learn that what are the importance of this and what aspects it covers. Like natural liberty, when we call something that there was a natural liberty, it points out the period before the organized political life, when it started an organized political life. So there were some restrictions, there were some restraints. So when there was no organized political life, so that era is known as the era of natural liberty, and there was no restraint on human freedom of action. So it was the absence of all legal restraints at that time. So this concept was highlighted specifically by the exponents of the theory of social contract. Social contract means that there is a contract among different segments of the society. It might be between the citizen and the state, in between the individuals as well. And then the second one is the national liberty. National liberty relates to the independence of state from external control, and it has been closely associated with nationalism. Qawmiyat. So, at the initial period of 20th century, we have seen that a lot of states they raised, a lot of nations they raised the slogan of national self-determination, and they got independence in 20th century, and Pakistan was one of them. Consequently, most of the nations in third world got independence. So from after World War II, many countries they raised the slogan of national self-determination and got independence from the forces who occupied their continent or their territory. In the present context, we are mainly concerned with the kinds of liberty recognized and enforced by the modern state in the enforcement of justice and fair play. The three kinds of liberty are important in political theory: civil, political, and economic liberty. What is civil liberty? So, according to Laski, consists in the liberty of an individual in action and thought in those areas of life where the results of one's efforts are mainly personal in nature. So if someone's acts or someone's efforts are mainly personal in nature, so that is civil liberty. Someone acts or someone thinks. So if the result or the efforts are made are personal in nature, then it is known as civil liberty. Political liberty means the participation of the citizens in political life of the community. In modern democratic states, government is elected by the people and is accountable to them. People indirectly participate in political decision-making process. So people, they do participate in the political affairs, and this is their political liberty. And in modern democracies, government is elected by the people, and generally it is considered that the government is accountable to them. So it is quite unusual in many states that the governments are accountable to the people, and the only accountability which the people they can make is not to vote them in next elections. That's all. So people they do participate in decision making process through their representatives. And economic liberty is in fact a part of civil liberty, but due to its importance, it is imperative to discuss it separately. Economic liberty consists in certain economic privileges and rights of individuals regarding the earning of their livelihood. So a person it has got a right to earn his livelihood what is more beneficial for him, and the privileges and the rights of individuals. So what is legal, what is lawful, the people or the individuals can adopt that business and they can earn their livelihoods. Nature of rights. First of all, it is important to know what is a right. हक क्या होता है? When we talk about nature of right, then what is a right? So right are those claims which are recognized by the state and enforced by law. Like, so citizen can enjoy true liberty only within state, and therefore a study regarding the nature and kinds of rights is indispensable. In order to protect the rights of all, the state imposes certain limitations on the activities of individuals. The provision of such facilities and privileges is known as right, and the rights are the claims of individuals recognized by the state, by virtue of which they feel secure from undue interference. So those claims which are recognized by the states, if they are not recognized by the state, that is not a right. And if someone has a right, so it must be documented and registered in the governmental official documents. So then it means that it is recognized. If you purchase a property, so when it is duly registered in the government office, so then it becomes your right. So according to Laski, rights are those conditions of social life in the absence of which no one can develop his capacities. Kinds of rights. Natural rights. The concept of natural rights has been regarded as the most ancient one, according to which human rights emanate from natural law, hence part of natural rights. Jean Bodin, who upheld monistic concept of sovereignty, believed in the supremacy of natural law and of natural rights, even over and above sovereign power. Locke also restricted the power of government under the supremacy of natural rights. What are natural rights? Natural rights are actually those rights those are not dependent on the laws or customs of any particular culture or government, and so are universal, fundamental, and inalienable. Like, they cannot be repealed by human laws, though one can forfeit their enjoyment through one's action, such as by violating someone else's rights. So the natural rights are your rights which you get at the time of your birth. Like, you cannot deprive of your life, you cannot deprive of your freedom, dignity, and liberty. And what are the moral rights? Moral rights are based on the established values of a society, but they lack legal sanction for their execution. Natural rights are also part of moral rights and thereby are not explicit and unambiguous. Moral rights are actually having uh, one, you can say, demerit, and that is that they lack legal sanction. You cannot go to the court just uh, for the infringement of a moral right, because they lack legal sanction for their execution. The example is that if You are hungry and your neighbor has not offered any food to you. So although morally it was imperative for him to offer you food, but if he did not, so you cannot go to the court that it was your moral right, so it was infringed. So you cannot take this case to the court because it has no legal sanction. Civil rights, very important. Civil rights impose obligation on the state to protect them against all types of encroachment. State enforce two types of laws in this connection: private and public law. Ernest Barker has prescribed three underlying principles for determining the classification of civil rights, and these are: number one, civil rights relating to physical activity, such as protection against illegal detention and right to movement within state. This is your right to move freely and you must not be detained by the state and by any other individual. So this is your physical activity that you can move freely within state. So if it is infringed or violated, then there is a force of law who can protect your right. So actually states interfere in the in the in civil rights. It is considered a violation and more, आप कह सकते हैं कि एक शहरी के लिए जो है ना वो ज़्यादा मुश्किलात पैदा कर सकता है अगर स्टेट ज़्यादा इंटरवीन करेगी या इंटरफेयर करेगी तो वो लोगों की आज़ादियों को ख़त्म कर सकते हैं. तो फिज़िकल एक्टिविटी, सिविल राइट आपकी फिज़िकल एक्टिविटी से रिलेट करते हैं. फिर सिविल राइट्स वो होते हैं जो दैट डील विद फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्टिविटी ऑफ माइंड, और आपके जहनी तौर पे जो कुछ आप सोच रहे होते हैं दैट इज़ आल्सो as your civil right, and these include freedom of religion and that of expression and right to form association. So you can freely practice your religion and that of expression, you got freedom of expression, and that is activity of mind. चूँकि मज़हब को आप फॉलो करते हैं, that is activity of mind, because your mind says that you are on a right track and you follow the divine guidance, and then the freedom of expression, that whatever comes to your mind you can freely express it, and right to form association, that you form an association just to protect your interest and right. The third category of civil right relates to practical activity, and it includes right to property, right to work, choice of profession, and right to privacy. So it includes right to property, that you can own property, and it is a practical activity. You can do some work and you can choose the profession, and this is your right to privacy, that no one should intervene in your private matters. The rights which are generally secured by modern states are given below. Number one, the right to life. This is most important, and most of the political thinkers regarded it as prior to the inception of state. Like when there was no state, so everyone got a right to life at that time as well. In primitive societies as well as in the early tribal organizations, life for life was the basis of this right, as legal remedy had not been evolved. So when someone kills an innocent, so he was killed in revenge. So this was the rule of that time in primitive societies. And right to personal security. Every individual should have the right to lead his life according to his liking. Slavery has been abolished as slaves were deprived of this right. Now the slavery is prohibited and is abolished, and because the slavery does not give a right of personal security to an individual. So now in the modern times, all individuals, they got a right to lead a life according to his liking. Right to reputation. Every person has the right to good name, and the respect others have for him should not be damaged either through the words spoken, gesture, or writing. So your reputation, your image must not be ruined. So this is your right, that you should be called with a good name, and your reputation must be protected, and it must not be damaged through the words spoken or gesture or writing. Like a majority of time we see that we call other people with a name which actually ruin his image और reputation. ख़ास लफ्ज़ हमने लोगों के लिए रखे होते हैं, तो जब वो बोलते हैं तो डेफिनेटली वो फिर उनकी जो रेपुटेशन होती है वो उसको ख़त्म कर देती है. शीदा टल्ली, जैसे हम शहरशीद को बोलते हैं शीदा टल्ली, तो बेसिकली वो जो उसकी रेपुटेशन है हम उसको ख़राब कर रहे होते हैं, उसके इमेज को बिगाड़ रहे होते हैं, या कोई ऐसे इशारे, गलत किस्म के इशारे कर रहे होते हैं, फिर या कोई राइटिंग में ऐसा कुछ लिख रहे होते हैं जो कि दूसरे की रेपुटेशन को ख़राब करता है. एंड फ्रीडम ऑफ कंसाइंस. So all citizens enjoy a right to adopt religious faith, and they cannot be forced to adopt religious practice of another faith. आपकी मर्जी है, whatever the religion you want to adopt and you want to practice, so this is your right, you can do that, and you cannot be forced to adopt some other religious practices. और स्टेट की जिम्मेदारी है कि it must secure you from all kind of interferences, and this is your right, and this right must be protected by the force of law. Right to education. Every citizen in a democratic state is expected to practice in public life, made possible through a process of political socialization. Educational system of a society is an important determinant regarding the successful working of the democracy. So when everyone is educated, so definitely the society will behave in a different way. And educational system, it plays a vital role in shaping the society and successful working of the democracy as well. When people are more aware of their rights and more aware of their state's image or state's policies, so they can contribute in a better way. Right to family life. So family life plays a vital role in shaping human behavior. In order to preserve this institution, most states have enacted family laws based on the prevailing customs and established values. So a family life, this is protected by the state as well. तो जो स्टेट का या फैमिली का एक इंस्टीट्यूशन होता है, इसको सेव करने के लिए बहुत सारे जो स्टेट्स होती हैं वो मुख्तलिफ फैमिली लॉज बनाते हैं जो कि वो प्रिवेलिंग कस्टम्स और इस्टेब्लिश्ड वैल्यूज़ के ऊपर बेस कर रहे होते हैं. Then freedom of expression, and this is really important, that true liberty cannot be enjoyed in the absence of freedom of expression. It is regarded keystone to democratic arc. Every citizen in a democratic state has the right to express his opinion freely, even to the extent of criticizing the government. However, freedom of expression has its limits too. That is, whatever comes to your mind, you can freely express it, and even you can, it is your right that you can criticize the government freely, but this freedom of expression has some limitations as well. In the Constitution of Pakistan, the freedom of expression has some limitations as well. So freedom of expression is a right, but it has some limitations, and it is not an absolute right. Right to association. In modern states, multi-types of associations flourish for the realization of different purpose. These associations serve public interest and protect multifarious interest of citizens. However, the objectives and norms of associations have to be formed within the legal limitations. So this is the right of citizens to make association, to form association, and to join associations. And these associations actually they protect the interest of citizens. And equality before law, this is the right which state ensures to protect. Like equality before law implies equality of all in the eyes of law, and none is regarded above law, and it plays a vital role in shaping the human behavior in a society. Like everyone is treated equally before the law, so when no one is above the law, so the law will keep them in a position where they cannot harm or violate the laws. Right to other facilities. So modern welfare states provide social services in different spheres of life. All the citizens of a state should have equal access to the services provided by state for the welfare of society. So there are certain other facilities which is the responsibility of a state to provide to its citizens, and every citizen must have equal access to these services. Economic rights. What are the economic rights which an individual or a citizen enjoy in a state and protected by this state? Economic rights are in fact a part of civil rights, but there is a need to discuss it separately due to its undeniable importance. So economic rights are: number one, a right to property. Right to own property is regarded as a basic human right. Right to property includes ownership of one's belongings, movable or immovable, both. So this is right of every citizen to own property. Right to work. Every citizen should have the right to work and adopt the profession of his choice. So you can choose your profession, whatever your interest is. Right to contract. So you can make a contract with anyone, but the terms of contract should be within the limits of law. Political rights. In a democratic society, government is regarded as part of public life as it is formed by the people and is also accountable to them. So there are certain political rights, and number one is right to vote. In democratic countries, citizens are given the right to vote on the basis of adult suffrage. So certain states, they have set a criteria that what age is good for a voter. So Pakistan has set the age of 18 years. So if someone is of 18 or more than 18, so he or she can vote. And this is the only right which people enjoys most of the time, and particularly in Pakistan. This is the only right which is emphasized by the political parties and the state, and forces their people to enjoy and practice this right. That's his right to vote. Right to contest election. There are specific qualifications which are required in different states for contesting as candidate to different office. Like in Pakistan, we do have Article 62 and 63, which describes the qualification of the members of the parliament. And although we don't care about that, so that's why we choose the same people again and again. And there are certain limitations on the expenditures which a candidate make during his election campaign. But the Election Commission of Pakistan failed to force the political parties and their candidates to abide by that rule. So that's why the majority of the candidates, they spend millions and they try to win the election. So when someone is spending more than 200 million, so definitely his chances to win the elections increase. And when someone have no money, so definitely the people of Pakistan will reject him at the very first level. Right to hold political offices. So this is the right that every citizen can hold any office, and it's a right that without any discrimination he can hold the highest political office provided he fulfills necessary conditions. So if someone fulfills the necessary conditions, he can hold the highest political office. Regular and free election. Another right of the people, and this right is the duty of the state to protect it, that to conduct free and regular elections. Change in the government is an important feature of a democratic system which is made possible through holding of fresh elections at regular intervals. But these elections should be held in free and impartial atmosphere. Right to criticize. So healthy criticism is indispensable for the working of a democratic system, and this is an important political right of citizens to express their opinion freely. When government is not behaving in a manner which is according to the will or wish of aspiration of the people, so this is the right of the people to criticize the government and express their opinion freely. So right to form political parties. So everyone got a right to form a political party. but there are certain restrictions imposed by the Election Commission of Pakistan that they must provide a list of more than 2,000 people with their NIC number and their addresses as their members, and they must have a specific office, they must have an organizing body, so then it is possible to form a political party in Pakistan. So emergence of political parties is inevitable in a democratic system. The working of this system is, to a greater extent, depending on the role of political parties. Every citizen should have the right to join or form any political party. So this is your right to join any political party or to form any political party, whatever you want. So your questions and queries, you can email even.